Hi everyone, and welcome to Small Town Stars Theater Company's STS in Training. This week our conversation is going to be on what happens after you get the role and moving into that first rehearsal. My name is Joel Roberson and I'm the Vice President of Small Town Stars Theater Company. Over the past few years I have served as both stage manager and co-director on numerous productions with the company. This week's conversation is going to take us away a little bit from where we started out with our audition tips in the first session. We're going to be talking about the read-through and preparing for the read-through and getting yourself ready to move into the rehearsal process after you've received your role. For this conversation, we're going to go through several different steps, specifically what to do in the days leading up to the read-through, the items that you need to make sure you have with you, and what is going to happen at the read-through. And then at the end, we'll discuss what you need to do to prepare for those upcoming rehearsals as you move further and further into the show process. To begin, I just want to catch everybody up. If you may have missed our first session, we went into detail specifically describing exactly what you needed to do in order to audition, how you needed to prepare yourself, specific items you may want to bring with you, and the techniques and methods that we recommend when you audition for a show. Now, after you've received a role in a show, you're going to get the contact from the creative team that's going to let you know what the role itself is and when that first initial rehearsal is going to be. Typically, for most companies, the first rehearsal is going to be a read-through. The read-through is going to be an opportunity for you to meet up with the rest of your cast members and to discuss exactly what the show's process is going to look like and to actually read through the script itself. The first thing that you're going to want to do when you find out that you've gotten the part is you're going to want to go back in and do additional research into the show. Leading into auditions, you're definitely going to want to look into those characters, but if you've reached the point where you've received the role and you don't quite know exactly what the character is feeling, what the character is going through, maybe you don't quite understand exactly the premise of the show or maybe the order of the songs, depending on whether or not it's a musical or a play, I highly recommend before even going into that first read-through, doing a little bit more research, maybe making yourself a bit more familiar with your character. Make sure that you do as much background research as you can, just so you have a clear idea of exactly what your character is feeling and knowing how your character or who your character is going to interact with throughout the show. I also recommend, before going into your first rehearsal and through the read-through, you need to prepare a kit of items that are going to help you and assist you in succeeding as you go through this process. The first item that you're desperately going to need is going to be a pencil. Most of the time, a pencil is going to be what you're going to use in your script. If you have a pen, most scripts are going to be rented from a rights holder, and those scripts are going to have to be returned back to them afterwards, so make sure you bring a pencil with you. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't bring a pen. A pen is going to be very useful if you have to sign any documents, contracts, different items like that, just to make sure that everything is in order before you get going with the show. An additional item that I always recommend is a bottle of water. Water is great. It keeps you hydrated and helps you keep your throat and your voice very clear as you're going through the read-through. Read-throughs are sometimes very lengthy. They're very usually a lengthy process, and you're going to want to make sure that you are well hydrated and staying focused. And having that water at arm's reach is definitely going to be beneficial. I also recommend bringing a highlighter. Now, of course, if you're going to be sending scripts back in the end and you have to return them back to your director, a highlighter is not going to be useful there. But having a highlighter for your contract as well as for your schedule for rehearsal is going to be very useful, as you can go through and highlight exactly when you're going to be needed and what you're going to be doing. Lastly, I recommend that you bring a planner or a notebook. A planner is going to be beneficial, as when you first get that schedule of rehearsals, you're going to be able to go in and check to make sure that everything is written down and is on the calendar and everything fits into the schedule that you currently have. And if there are any conflicts whatsoever, making sure they are addressed as early as possible. The notebook is going to be very useful as you go through your read-through, solely for the fact that it's going to give you the opportunity to take notes. It's going to allow you to explore your character and give you initial opportunities to write down your thoughts and your ideas about what your character is going through as you go through the first initial read-through. Lastly, before we go into the first rehearsal, you want to make sure the night before you get plenty of rest. If you're well rested and you're focused, you're going to have a much more successful rehearsal. Now, after getting yourself well rested the night before, you're going to wake up the next day and you're going to get prepared to go off to the read-through. Make sure you get to the read-through early. I always recommend getting to every rehearsal early just so you can prepare yourself and warm up, but the read-through is especially important. Getting to the read-through early is going to provide you multiple benefits, including you're going to have the opportunity to meet some of your fellow castmates, and you're going to be able to meet the creative team. Building those relationships early on and getting to know people is really going to help you out as you go through this process. Also, getting in early allows you to fill out additional paperwork. It allows you to collect your contracts, your schedules, your scripts. All of those items are going to be super important as you go through the read-through, and just having that extra time is really going to give you the opportunity to gather those things and get everything completed so you don't have to worry about them through the read-through. One of the biggest things about getting there early is to be able to have the time to skim through your script, figure out exactly where your lines are, and know exactly who you may be interacting with. In some situations, when you get to a read-through, you may not be sitting directly next to the person that you're going to be talking to the most. So having a little bit of an idea as to who the characters are and maybe knowing who some of the people are that are playing them will help you make things a little bit easier as you're going through your script. Now, before the read-through gets started, I always recommend that you take some time to sit down, to go through your script, and to really make sure you know where things are, so that way when we are ready to get started, or when any casting or creative team is ready to get started, you're ready to go and you're ready to sit down and have this conversation and to run through this show. The worst thing that you could ever deal with is getting to a point in the read-through where it's your line and you don't realize that it's your line. So really take a moment to at least figure out where your first line is before the read-through gets started. Now, as the read-through gets started, I highly recommend staying very, very focused. Keep an eye on the script, stay on book. Make sure you know where you're at constantly. Nothing could be worse than getting to a point in the script where it's your line and you don't realize that it's your line. Stay focused, remain professional. While you're going through the script, I highly recommend really taking some time to explore the characters and explore the relationships that they're having with other characters in the show. Really take a moment to understand the piece, understand the flow, understand exactly what's going on. So that way you get a clear and really early on, you get a clear and focused idea as to what exactly is happening in this show. I always recommend that you take notes. Take notes on the character, take notes on the setting, take notes on the interactions, take notes on everything that goes on at the rehearsal and during the read-through specifically. It becomes very, very handy in the end when you can go back after this rehearsal and look at those notes and see exactly what was discussed and have a good, clear idea as you start building on your character. A lot of really good initial information comes out of that first read-through, so having those notes to go back on really is going to be beneficial. In addition to taking notes on design elements, character, setting, I also recommend throughout the read-through to take notes and to ask questions. Now, I don't mean stopping the read-through to ask questions, but I mean writing down those questions and being prepared to ask them in the end. This first read-through is really a great opportunity for you to look at everything that's being presented and to prepare questions to help make the process of developing a character much, much smoother. I also recommend writing down any questions or any issues that you may have just in general with the show, not necessarily just the script, but any issues that, have been brought up through all of the information that you received, just so as soon as that rehearsal is done, you have prepared and gathered everything that you need to approach your creative team afterwards, specifically if you have any questions or if you have any issues that need to be resolved immediately. Now, as you prepare to leave that initial read-through, make sure you have all of the items you brought with you. Make sure you gather and collect any contact information that you may need that may not have been presented to you so far, whether that be cast member contact information, information from the creative team that may be beneficial going forward. Make sure you have that information so that way you're not stuck without it and needing crucial answers solved quickly. Now, after that initial read-through, you're going to be super excited that you made it through, and you're going to be excited to go and explore your character, and you'll finally have that script in your hand that's going to tell you exactly what you need to do moving forward, and it's going to give you the blueprint to create a magnificent show. My biggest recommendation that very first night after you get home from the read-through is take a look through some of those notes. Go back through, read some of those character ideas, read some of those comments about the design of the show. Really take some time to analyze exactly what was presented, so that way you can move forward into your first rehearsal knowing at least a bit more about your character than what you did before going to the read-through. I highly encourage everyone to always, always, always look over their rehearsal schedule and look over their contract very early on in the process after the read-through. Look over the rehearsal schedule and highlight any dates that you may be called and add them to your own personal calendar if you haven't already done this at the beginning of the read-through. Know when those dates are and make sure that those dates fit everything that's going on in your schedule, and if they don't, present those issues to your creative team as early as possible. Conflicts can usually be worked around as long as they are presented in a timely manner. Always, always, always take a highlighter, go through those calendars, and know exactly when those dates are, so that way all issues can be resolved as soon as possible. Some of the crucial dates that you're really, really going to want to focus on are going to be the dates of when you need to be off book by, which is going to be the date that you need to have all of your lines memorized in the script. It's going to be even more important specifically if it's a musical and you need to have some of the music memorized, or you need to have your blocking organized by that date. Make sure you know that date. Make sure you have it written down everywhere. It really makes things a lot easier when you can be off book by that date, and it makes it easier not only for you, but it makes it easier for the entire cast and for the creative team as well. Also, make sure you take your script and find every single line, every single piece of blocking that is written in, every single comment or explanation in the script that relates to your character. Now, don't write in it with a pen or with a highlighter. Use a pencil. Always use a pencil. Even if you have a script and it's going to be yours to keep, always write in pencil. It's easier to erase things. It's easier to make notes. Always mark those items, so that way they're easy to find. And also, some people prefer to use sticky notes or different things like that to mark off pages. Those are great as well. Anything that's going to help you in your process of trying to create this character and to make it easier on yourself when you're going through rehearsals is going to be the best call for you. Lastly, I recommend that you always make sure, and this isn't just for the rehearsal, right after the read-through, I recommend you always make sure that you are prepared to go for the next rehearsal. Always make sure that you have your pen, you have your pencil, you have your highlighter, you have water, you have anything else that's going to help you have the best and most successful rehearsal. If you need a snack, make sure you have a snack. If you need anything at all that's going to help you, make sure it's prepared to go, because nothing is worse than getting to rehearsal and not being prepared. In addition to packing a bag of all the items that you're going to need at that next rehearsal, make sure you also take some time to look through your script to see exactly what's going to be covered at the next rehearsal. Now, the off-book date may not be another month away or 2 months away, but Knowing exactly what's going to be covered and being prepared is going to be much more beneficial to you than showing up and not knowing at all what's going to be covered. Always make sure that you have that idea and those items in your head before going in. Also, if you're in a musical, make sure you're looking at your schedule and make sure you know exactly what is going to be covered at that upcoming rehearsal. If it's going to be blocking, make sure you know exactly where you're going to be covering in your script. If it's choreography, make sure you have items packed so that you can adequately learn the choreography, whether that be correct shoes, correct clothing, anything that may be beneficial to you and helping you going through that choreography rehearsal. And the same also goes for vocal rehearsal. If you know that a song is coming up, take some time, look through your script, find the song, know where the song starts in the show, know what happens before and after it. Maybe look over the song or listen to the song. Really get an idea to what exactly is happening in the song, so that way when you go and learn it, you can add a little bit of that character into the song. Now, it probably will be very early on in the process, but having a clear idea as to exactly what's going to be done is going to help you in that development of your character moving forward. To recap tonight's discussion, we started with what happened in our last STS Stars in Training session. We talked about what happens right after you get the part, preparing for the read-through, what you need to bring with you to the read-through. We talked about getting to the read-through early, what you need to do as you go through the read-through with staying on task and staying focused and preparing all of the questions you may have. And lastly, we discussed what you need to do after the read-through to prepare for upcoming rehearsals. We hope you all have enjoyed this week's discussion for STS Stars in Training. We are always looking for more recommendations and more comments from you all about what you would like to be covered in these videos, so please add those comments down below. Also, don't be afraid to ask us a couple of questions. We'd be more than happy to provide any information that you're looking for. And if you aren't already, please follow us on all of our social media accounts. That's going to be the best way to get to know exactly what's going on in the company, when upcoming events, auditions, anything's going on. That will be the first place that you would want to look for that information. Stay safe, everybody, and we hope to see you back in the audience or on stage soon.